Alright everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're back here doing another episode review and my last episode review for The Walking Dead Season 7. This is episode 16, the season finale entitled The First Day of the Rest of Your Life. First word that comes to mind when I'm thinking of this episode, I thought it was absolutely amazing. Probably the best season finale that we've had yet. I would have to say it's definitely up there at least. If not number one, a close second. Probably only to... I would say maybe season 4. Season 4 was pretty fucking good, you know, with the whole hurtling into the train car thing, you know, it was amazing, but this was a lot better in my personal opinion. Now, without further ado, I'm not going to really go through it and recap it and stuff like that, you know, word for word and detail for detail. Now, I thought this episode was absolutely amazing. Now, the story arc behind the entire episode, which was really Sasha fighting with herself, and we actually end up getting to see Abraham as well. We end up seeing basically Sasha not really hallucinate, but remember some things that she experienced in her past, and we actually get to see a flashback sequence with Abraham right before they went off to obviously go take Maggie to the hilltop, which would have been before the season 6 finale, okay? So we get to see sort of the day that Abraham most likely died, alright? So it's unfortunately they went back and forth, Sasha telling him not to go, she had a dream about him dying and, you know, stuff like that, and it was all really emotional from his standpoint, just because we know that he's gone, you know what I mean? And there's nothing that we can do to change that, but this flashback sequence I thought was something that we all really needed. I just, I don't know. I don't know. I loved it, don't get me wrong. It was kind of hard seeing it again, especially with the one-liners that Abraham pulls out, you know, talking about his nuts in the sand and the beach and stuff like that. That was fucking hilarious. There's no other way to put it. And other than that, a few other things that happened in this episode that I thought were awesome and absolutely amazing. Well, for starters, let's go ahead and get into Dwight. Alright, so we get to see Dwight first off in the episode with basically Daryl confronting Dwight and really trying to determine whether or not he's really telling the truth, you know, here, and whether or not they can trust him, and, you know, what his real plans are and his real motives. And he actually ends up convincing Daryl, and I would say the rest of them as well, that he is telling the truth. He does want Negan dead, and they end up trusting him, you know, not necessarily, you know, the right-hand man of their group, right? But they end up trusting him, and Rick basically says when he makes him take off, because Dwight said the saviors are coming tomorrow, I can slow him down, I can knock over some trees in the road, and he actually ended up doing that, by the way. So that was pretty clutch on Dwight's part. It definitely slowed them down, gave him an opportunity to get ready. And I thought that was necessary because they needed to prep the explosives and stuff like that. So they, like I said, they ended up trusting him. I think that it was definitely the right call. You can see that Daryl definitely wanted to kill him, and he explained to us and Rick that no matter what, whether or not he was lying or he was telling the truth, eventually I will kill that son of a bitch. And Rick basically said, you know, if he is lying, well, this is already over. And that's totally true because they have the upper hand, but already they have the upper hand because of a little bird. I just stuttered there so bad. It would have been so cool if I would have nailed that line, but they already have the upper hand because of a little birdie. And that little birdie turned out to be the Scavengers, Jadis, the Junkyard Crew, the really weird haircut lady, you know? And it ended up being her. She ended up being the little birdie. Unfortunately, she made another deal with Negan's people instead, because it was a better deal, you know? It's basically how she explained it, you know, that was her reasoning for it. And the reason, you know, how that came about was really Negan and obviously Eugene and their whole crew with the trucks and everything. They approached Alexandria, and basically Rick and them were planning an explosion outside of Alexandria to, you know, take out some of them and then take out the rest of them with guns, right? It was a smart idea. Take out a few with an explosion, a big explosion, and then, you know, handle the rest on your own with hand-to-hand combat. It's smart. Now, the only thing with that was that the explosives didn't go off. They've been dismantled. And that ended up being Jadis and her people. She pointed a gun at Rick's head after Rick started to get up after taking cover from the explosion. And everybody had them at gunpoint, basically. And they were essentially almost in the same situation they were in at the end of Season 6, right? It's unfortunate, but, you know, that's the situation that they were in. They were basically helpless to do anything because the numbers had them outnumbered again, literally and figuratively. Now, the one good thing that really came out of this whole, you know, they turned on you thing is now we know who we can really trust in this whole alliance thing, you know? We know for a fact now that we can't trust Jadis, whereas before there was sort of doubts, you know, we could trust her, maybe we can't, maybe we can, you know, we have no idea, but now we know we can't because she's so bought out easily, you know? Rick ended up trying to make another deal with her, and she ended up shooting him in like the lower left midsection, like sort of it was sort of like a hip shot, if you will. I would say probably around a hip shot. So it wasn't really anything fatal, you know, it was something to get the ball rolling, you know? And, well, before that happened, I shouldn't have skipped that right away. I thought that was a really cool part, because it just makes you want the fucking haircut girl dead so much more. Sasha had a plan, okay? Brilliant plan, too. It actually ended up being right out of the Holly story arc inside of the Walking Dead graphic novel. I thought that it was amazingly executed. Actually, better than I think it was in the comic book. It's my personal opinion. I thought that it was a lot better. They ended up putting her in a casket and bringing her to Alexandria that way. That was all part of her plan. She took the pill that, obviously, Eugene gave her the episode prior because she was going to commit suicide, and she brought it inside of the coffin with her. Now, while she was on the way to Alexandria, she obviously popped the pill while she was listening to music. And while she was dying, she was thinking of all this Abraham stuff and repeating quotes. And, you know, that's when the dream sequence or the flashback sequence really occurred, is when, you know, she was in those parts inside of the casket. Now, she took that pill. She ended up dying. And right when Negan pulled her out of the casket to show everybody that, you know, she had her, or he had her rather, and she was safe and no one has to die except for one person of your choosing, she pops out of the casket, tackles Negan off the bed of the truck, which, by the way, it looked like a pretty far drop. You know what I mean? It didn't look like it was too low to the ground. It looked pretty hard. It really did. Anyway, she fell on top of him, almost bit him a few times. And this is really what gave, you know, our group to, like the split second, the moment, to actually end up fighting back against Jadis and the Saviors, you know, because they were all held at gunpoint by the Jadis and the Junkyard crew and the Scavengers and, of course, the Sanctuary and, you know, the Saviors and everybody. They were holding them hostage. And this moment, you know, that took everybody's focus away from that and focus onto Sasha almost killing Negan is what gave him that split second for Carl actually to initiate it, turn around, kill the Scavengers that were holding him and a few other people at gunpoint, and then a firefight broke out, an all-out war, if you will. Not necessarily, it was sort of like a mini-war, you know, it was sort of like an all-out war, but at the same time it was like the prelude, I guess, to the all-out war, which is something I thought personally we were going to see in this episode, and we actually ended up seeing it. So, Sasha ended up on top of Negan, almost biting him. Savior actually ended up pulling her off of him, and he got bit on the face on his own. So, I mean, she ended up dying, you know, but she did do good for the group after all. She killed a couple of Saviors. Well, I think one, but it could have been a few other two. I don't know. I have no idea. But anyway, she did end up killing one, biting the face off of her, or him, rather. And again, that gave the group that split-second moment to start fighting back. Now, that fight didn't last too long, you know, because they still have the numbers on them, unfortunately. And, you know, Negan went into Plan B, and unfortunately, again, they have those overwhelming numbers. They ended up getting the upper hand on them. Again, it didn't really help that Rick got shot by Jadis just a little bit of, like, a little tiny bit ago, you know, when right after the prelude sort of happened, the war happened. It didn't help that Rick got sort of taken out of the altercation because she shot him and then kicked him off of the wall, right? So it was kind of a big fall for him too. But either way, guys, I thought this was an amazing episode because of those things that happened and what happens right after. Now, again, my predictions for this episode are in the description below, okay? I will put the link down there to my prediction video. And you guys will go ahead and see that I predicted exactly what was going to happen in this episode, okay? And I thought they executed it amazingly, all right? So after they got the upper hand on the survivors again, which is Rick's crew and Alexandria's crew, after they got the upper hand on them, they started the whole lineup thing again. Now, it was much smaller. There were a few others off to the side and, you know, stuff like that. But really, in the main core, they lined up Rick and Carl. Now, it was just them. The others were off, still fighting off in the background, like Daryl and everybody else. They were still fighting and probably pinned down or something like that. We have no idea what was going on with them. But Rick and Carl were both kneeling, okay? Before Negan, before Dwight was even there. I mean, he's obviously on Rick's side now. I personally definitely trust him. Anyway, he's on Rick's side now, but he can't really do anything from his perspective, you know. Overwhelming numbers for him, too. It's best to just stay out of it, you know. There's not really much point in doing anything to try to help Rick, because he'll just end up dead, you know. And, anyway. They line up him, okay. Negan kneels down and basically tells Rick, you know, you screwed everything up. You know, this is what you did. You screwed everything up, and now someone has to die. He ends up explaining that he's now going to kill Carl. He's going to crush his little skull in. He's going to try to make it one big hard blow, though, so that Carl doesn't have to suffer, because he likes Carl. And he explains to him if he ever had a kid that he would want him to be like Carl, which makes that harder for him to do now. You know, and like killing Carl, it makes it harder for him to do that. And Rick basically explains to him, after Negan said he was also going to take Rick's hands, he explains to him in the most, not over dramatic, but the most badass way, I guess, possible, saying, you can take my hands right in front of me, everything, no matter what. I've already told you, I will kill you, not today, not tomorrow, but nothing will change that. And obviously he said it in much deeper, more Ricky voice that just sounded fucking amazing from Andrew Lincoln, I have to say. And after that, it's time for Carl to die. Negan gets up, takes off Carl's hat, goes behind him, and just as he's about to slam down with the bat on Carl's head, doesn't Shiva come out of absolutely fucking nowhere? Okay, absolutely fucking not. I kind of forgot to tell you that the Kingdom and Carol and, you know, Ezekiel and Morgan, they were on their way to Alexandria to get some allies in this fight. So I kind of forgot to mention that part. I got caught up in the action. I apologize. Either way, they came in clutch. Shiva pounced on a savior right behind Negan. Negan sort of freaked out, and they all sort of ran off. So Carl's safe. They picked up a gun. Rick picked up a gun. They started shooting. Daryl's got a badass assault rifle. Not exactly sure what the hell it is, but it's really fucking cool. Anyway, they started fighting him off. Like I said, Kingdom, Alexandria, Hilltop was even there. Maggie came to the rescue, and they ended up fighting off all of the saviors and ended up killing quite a bit of them. Not a whole lot in terms of, you know, the amount of numbers that the saviors have. They have crazy amounts of numbers, but they ended up fighting them off because they didn't really bring all of their saviors. You know, they probably brought about, I would say maybe 20 to 30, and then plus, you know, the Jadis crew or the Junkyard crew. So they brought them too, obviously, but they ended up killing a lot of them. Another thing that happened was Michonne. We ended up seeing her fall off of a building, or we thought it was her, but it was actually the other girl that ended up attacking her, and Michonne's all fucked up. Her face is like just completely screwed. But either way, I thought that was a really interesting story arc. That was basically what happened in the comic books with Andrea. And I'm not sure what noises are going on behind me out there, but I'm about to go kick somebody in the teeth. I will say that right now. Anyway, that happened in the comic book to Andrea. I thought it was a really interesting story arc that they proceeded to do with Michonne here in the TV show. I thought that was nice. A nice touch, if you will, because, you know, she's sort of Michonne, or she's sort of Andrea, rather, in the comic book. Michonne is now in the TV show, because Andrea in the comic book is the one that's going out with Rick. You know, she's the one in the relationship with Rick. She's the one that almost got taken off the guard tower and, you know, flew out the side of it and stuff like that. This time it's Michonne. So again, she took her story arc, which I think was an amazing idea. You know, I think they definitely should have gone with it from the start, and I'm glad they did. So anyway, other than that, like I said, Kingdom attacked, and they ended up fighting off the saviors. pushing him out of the compound. Smoke grenades were going off, and it was an absolutely chaotic scene. So yeah, guys, it was some of the most badass stuff that I've seen in The Walking Dead in quite some time, like especially with Shiva just pouncing on some saviors and just eating their faces out. It was absolutely insane to see, and so damn badass. Now, with that being said, I mean, that was pretty much the end of the episode from an action standpoint. The rest was all really talking. We get to catch up with Negan and Eugene, of course, and Simon and Dwight back at the Sanctuary compound, basically saying we're going to war now. Negan sort of wondered there for like a minute how Sasha would have died inside of the casket. Eugene basically covered his ass and said, she probably ran out of air, So, good play there with the Dr. Eugene, but other than that, he basically said we're going to war, and then it was a zoom out shot of like his entire army, which is fucking massive, and I don't even think that's probably it because there's still outposts and stuff. So yeah, they're going to the war, and Negan clearly has the numbers advantage yet again. But as we've seen today, that's not something that necessarily always matters. Okay, so to end the episode off now, we get to see a really emotional scene. Not a flashback of Glenn, but definitely referencing the shit out of Glenn. We get to see, or hear rather, Maggie talking over basically the entire scene. Like I said, it was a really emotional scene. We get to see Sasha die, the zombified Sasha die. Unfortunately, she lost her best friend. She loses everybody, She's lost, obviously, her brother, on the farm, or I guess maybe her stepbrother, or whatever Jimmy was to her. She lost, obviously, her father. She lost her sister. She lost her husband. Now she lost her best friend in Sasha. She loses everybody, man. It's a shitty, it's a shitty time for Maggie. But either way, she pushes through it again, just like she always does. She's very strong. And, again, a very emotional scene, basically saying, we went from being strangers, passing each other on the road, not knowing each other, to being family, all because Glenn stopped at the start of this to help you. Obviously talking to Rick, because that, anyway, it basically gave us like nostalgia, and just took us back to when we first met Glenn, when he saved Rick's life. Okay. And she's basically saying if that didn't happen, he wouldn't have got to his group. They eventually wouldn't have gotten to the farm. They wouldn't have met each other. You know what I mean? They wouldn't be family, And it all started with Glenn. And that is why Maggie decided to come back and obviously help fight off the saviors and join the fight and everything like that. And that's basically what she's explaining, Glenn started this and we're going to finish it. Again, a very emotional scene. And the final shot was her, basically the camera panning down to her hand with the watch that Herschel gave Glenn back in like season 2. So it's pretty deep. It's pretty deep, to say the least. Anyways, guys, thank you all so much for watching. I thought it was an amazing episode. Again, I did predict the whole Shiva thing because that happened straight out of the comic books, and I absolutely loved it in the comic books, and it's just so badass to see it here on TV actually come to life, And thank you all so much for watching again. Thank you all so much for tuning in to all my episode review videos that have ever come out, and my episode predictions, of course. Dogs need to definitely shut the fuck up. Anyways, guys, I do really appreciate the support that you guys always show me on my predictions and my review videos. And if you guys want to see any other videos on The Walking Dead, like me doing a discussion or something about something maybe that's happened in the season, let me know and I can definitely make that happen. But for now, this is going to be the end to my predictions and reviews for The Walking Dead Season 7. Alright, so we obviously have Fear the Walking Dead coming up in June, so I will bring them back for that. Alright, but until then, if you guys want to see any discussions, or, if you just want me to make this channel about gameplay like I have been, like I mainly do, let me know that as well. So, thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you thought of the episode in the description below, or in the comment section below. I'm a bad YouTuber, okay? I get it. Let me know down there what you thought of the episode. I thought it was a 10 out of 10, an 11 out of 10 if it's even possible, but 10 out of 10 from a realistic standpoint. And it was just, it was insane. Hour and 25 minutes, guys. Definitely worth the entire watch. I'm probably gonna go watch it actually after this. Honestly, it was that good. I'm probably gonna watch it more and more and more just to see Shiva absolutely fucking pounce on some guy. And he just gets absolutely fucked, basically. So, anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, everybody. Bye.